I think we should get right to it. So I could give lengthy introductions, but I think instead of cutting into your time, I'll just let you introduce yourselves a little bit. First, I wanted to introduce Ian Rassman from LA NORML, who has taken over and really run with LA NORML and put together a great team of people to carry it into the next millennium. Where are we? And he's also been working very hard on expanding compassion program access for patients who are needy patients in California who are really not accounted for in the original Prop 64, and that has changed. So Ian, can you take it away?
Thanks so much for letting me be part of this. I'm just so unbelievably honored to even be in the room with so much greatness that's here today.
Oh, actually, are we supposed to speak at the podium?
Sure.
Yeah, let's speak at the podium, then you can take off your mask and stuff. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
Anyway, Ellen, thank you to you and Dale for organizing this. I mean, it's been truly an inspiring event. Some of us were not here 25 years ago, or we were here, but we were not involved. And so it's nice to be able to see so many of the legends in the room and to recognize all the giants that those of us carrying the torch forward are standing upon. So truly honored. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. So I want to talk a little bit about SB 34. There's been a number of people here today that have brought it up, and I applaud all the groups that are participating in this. I think that this SB 34 program, very aptly named the Dennis Peron and Brownie Mary Act, it's really a significant legislation in that it helps us change the stigma. Right, this is a really big tool for changing the stigma here, letting the public know that this is really a medicine and getting it out to the people that need it. So we've been reaching out to the industry. You know, we're down in Southern California. Arguably, if you kind of draw a line across half of the state, we've got about 25 million people that's south of the central part of the state. So it's a massive population. There's an incredible amount of the industry that's down in the Southland. And we found a very receptive audience when we go to talk about compassionate care. It's not really a hard sell, honestly. You know, most people in the industry have heard about it and perhaps didn't quite know how to get involved in it and how to participate. So we set up a framework through our team. Eric Gopel over here in the audience really came to our team with this mission and helped us organize and teach the rest of the industry how they can get involved. So to date, since we started actively pushing this program, let's see, Eric gave me some updated numbers here. We've donated over $1 million in cannabis products to a pool of over 600 patients, and of which about 300 to 400 of them are getting served every 4 to 8 weeks. And we do have a very large veteran pool in that group. We're currently doing this in over 5 counties in Southern California with over 50 brands participating and over a dozen active and past donation sites, meaning retailers. And the donation bags that we try to set up for an event. So we try to set up an SB 34 event at like a dispensary. We try to set up the theme of the event in something that's personal to the dispensary. You know, maybe there's some Crohn's disease or some cancer or some AIDS that's close to that business. And so whatever they want to support, we help them white label that and help them get that out there. Help the brands, help them find the brands that want to put some product in the bag. And then maybe on a Saturday from 1 to 4, we'll have a compassionate event, and it's at this donation, or perhaps it's at an American Legion post, which has been an amazing partner. And we will have a dispensary come in and either at the dispensary or deliver into a post. We'll try to target about 50 patients per event, if at all possible. And when these patients come in and they receive a bag on average of about $400 in retail value. So it is not a small bag that they're walking home with. And this is all on donation from the industry. So it's truly amazing. And what we're trying to bring the message out to the community is that This is a mission of love, light, and medicine, and we need to keep expanding it, and that giving away medical cannabis is good for business, okay? Because when you set up one of these events, you're almost certainly going to be bringing in people that had not been to your dispensary before. Now they're getting exposed to your products, and you're bringing them into the licensed legal process where perhaps they were getting it outside of the legal process before. So now you're bringing them inside. So this is where we've been going with the program. We're really excited to keep pushing it out. And there are so many great people, even here at this table and on the last several panels that have been pushing out this program. And we're just really honored to participate and keep it going. So what we'd like to do is we would like to expand this all the way across California. You know, there's really an unlimited number of patients that need access to this medicine and they can't afford it. And so we want to just keep expanding across California. But then at the same time, why just California, right? This is the only place in the entire planet where you can donate legal medicine. That's crazy. So what we need here is we need a well-established program in California with massive participation and big results and lots of love and lots of medicine. And then we need to take this message out to the other states. Be like, where's your program like California has? Where's your legislation that allows for this? So we truly believe that you know, this should really be an integrated part into the licensing. Like if you want to get a license, like what are you going to do for the community? You're going to give something back. So that's another push that, you know, we're trying to make is this should be part of everybody's licensing process. If you're going to give out licenses in your community, make sure that the licensees are doing something to give back in. So this is the program that we've been working on for about a year and a half, I think, since right about when Corona locked down. So it's been quite a program to launch during the pandemic. But we're pretty proud of the outreach, and we're all truly lifted in the work that we're doing. I'm going to tell you, you go to one of these events, those of you that have been involved in compassion and giving away medicine, you know, when you see tears rolling down somebody's cheek because of what they've received and what it's going to mean for them, you can't help but be touched. So it's truly probably one of the most beautiful things I've ever participated in. And you know, that's it. So.
Thanks, Ian. And here's your Pioneer Award. 2015 Pioneer Award. Next, I would like to introduce Kandice Hawes-Lopez, who's been the longtime chair of Orange County NORML. Was voted chapter of the year a couple of times. She's one of many locations where we're fighting a lot of NIMBYism and intransigence about accepting licensing, and she's done a lot of great work in that area, and I'm excited to hear about her FACES program on that.
Well, hello, everybody, and thank you so much for staying through the end to hear us. It's going to be a great panel talking about the future and really applying what we've been talking about. So first of all, I'm so honored to be here. It's just amazing. I've been watching all of these folks since 2003 when I went to my first NORML conference. I had just lost my financial aid for a cannabis charge. I was feeling kind of like at the bottom, like everything had kind of been turned upside down. Little did I know that it really set me on the course of like where I was meant to be. And I really feel like NORML and activism really shaped my adulthood. And I grew up, you know, from 21 to being 40 years old now. You know, I really feel like it has really given me so much as I like to think that I have given to other people. So just really in awe of everybody that's here. You guys are all amazing. And I, you know, have watched you for many, many years. At the same time that I feel like I've just been watching you guys, I feel like at the same time we're, you know, kindred spirits, that we're brothers and sisters in this fight. There's not many people that have in common with the few people I know that have been around for so long, that can remember having to drive all across the state to get your medicine, to being scared when you go to bed at night, whether the cops are going to come arrest you, making long-term plans like, am I going to be able to go on that vacation? Am I going to still be around here? You know, seeing people have their children ripped out of their homes, being just harassed by the police and having your recommendation ripped up in front of you and thrown away and saying that your doctor's a quack or a loony, you know? just continuously being harassed even by people on the streets trying to spread our message, being rejected by government officials over and over and over again. But so it's so nice now to see it completely reversed. And we actually see in some cities government officials fighting for cannabis like they were on our team. So it's kind of nice to see how far we have come in some ways through these 25 years. But in some ways, we still have very, very far to go. In Orange County, where I'm the executive director, we have about 3 million people, but until just recently, we only had one city with access for cannabis patients and consumers. So for 5 years, Santa Ana was the only city that allowed safe access. Just now, we have 3 more cities that are coming on board, which is great. We still have many more to go and a lot of work to do. What we've noticed coming to these city council meetings is sometimes we feel like we're back in 1996 in Orange County. We'll show up at these city council meetings and we'll have 60 angry parents with their children with protest signs, people from parent groups, religious groups, neighborhood associations organizing. And it seems that they've taken, some notes from our side and they're coming organized. The last time we went to Fullerton, they had a pizza party out in the parking lot. So, they're giving their people scripts, they're being organized, they're being taught, and they're like even entertaining these folks. And we have to sit sometimes for 6 hours before we get heard. So sometimes our folks, who are like not feeling well, can't stay for the whole meeting, and they have to end up leaving. And we're like left alone with, very few people on our side. So there's still a lot to do. And what we decided, one of the best things that we can do to resolve this problem is that we need to have some sort of educational program that's, ground roots. So what we started is the FACES program. That stands for Fostering Awareness for Cannabis Education Services. And what we're going to be doing is going out to those communities, first in Orange County, who have yet to have licensing, that still have bans, and to offer a community session where people can come and they can tell us, what their myths and misconceptions are. Our goal is to really it's to intercept people, it's to educate them, and then to neutralize them. We know in a lot of times we're not going to be able to make these people big cannabis, fans and start using it right away, but we can neutralize them. We can prevent them from coming to city council meetings and telling wild untruths in front of council members. We fought very hard in Fullerton almost a year to get regulations in place there, and then we had an election, and 2 weeks later they rescinded the whole ordinance, and we were back at square one. So, and it's all because of these folks, who are uneducated. They don't really, a lot of times they come from Hispanic communities where they've seen just the harms of the war on drugs, and they don't really see the benefits. So this is what we think will be the best way to try to change the course of history as far as licensing in Orange County. We also think it's also very important that we keep educating the industry. There's a lot of new folks coming in and they don't really understand the roots, the sacrifices, the battles, and all those that really need to be honored in this movement. So we think it's very important that we help these cannabis companies, and we all either work for cannabis companies or have clients in these cannabis companies, but we want to make sure that they stay humbled, that they stay grounded in the roots, that they honor those who have fought, that they ensure for safe, affordable access. And SB 34 is amazing in doing that. So we stand with LA NORML, and we're really trying to educate all those folks that have cultivation, manufacturing, distribution, and retail licenses, that they can donate close to that product that's close to expiring. They can save money. They don't have to destroy that. They can actually donate it to patients. And they can also work with other companies that are willing to donate brand new product, which is amazing. So we want to make sure that companies, again, stay educated, stay grounded, that they work for affordable access. And like we've said before, very, very important that all these companies do their part to help release those brothers and sisters that are still in jail, that were stuck in that period of time, where the government knew that they were on their last battle. They were trying to make their last ditch efforts they could to keep the control against this plant, but it's meant to be free. And unfortunately, these guys are still stuck in jail, and we need to do everything that we can to help them get out. So with that, thank you guys so much. I am so blessed and honored to be part of this community, and I look forward to all the work that we can do together.
Excellent. So I think next, for the flow of content, I'm going to bring up our other local representative, Bram Goodwin, of the Brownie Mary Democratic Club in San Francisco. They've been active in a lot of also, opening up licensing in various parts of the city, and also the consumption room issue, which is another, right now it's legal, but you can go to a store and buy it and then scurry away somewhere to smoke it. It's really not as legal as I'd like it to be. And so that's something that Bram is going to speak about.
Well, first, thank all of you. I'm old enough that I have benefited for the last 25 years. I was lucky enough to have gone to the original Cannabis Buyers Club. And what I want to talk about today is consumption. And I think the thing that really struck me when I went there was I could buy anywhere. You know, I had connections, but I couldn't consume legally in a space. And it was a community thing. So I just wanted to mention that we're local, San Francisco, Brownie Mary. Many of you know David Goldman and Michael Keogh. Thank God, they're vacationing in Key West and enjoying themselves, but they're here in spirit, certainly, and they've done an amazing job. We represent medical and recreational consumers. We want the laws in San Francisco to be fair for consumers. And we think one of the best ways, and I think it was really illustrated this morning, was electing officials that are going to be open-minded. Just was just discussed that we can sit down with and show them the science. And certainly during our COVID period, this whole concept of follow the science has become very strong. And I think we have picked up on that and used that in terms of talking to our public officials. So we in San Francisco, has been illustrated earlier, we've been lucky that we've had quite a few people. We also want access for medical patients. We want the MMIC card, which is somewhat controversial because of its cost, but we want it to be recognized at every dispensary. And the reality is, and we've been fighting this, many dispensaries don't do it, won't recognize it, and won't recognize on the side compassion. And in our view, it's wrong. And we want, we fought a few cases. We're still fighting some cases in the city where people won't give the medical exemption so they don't have to pay sales tax. And we think it's a terrible thing. And on today's celebration, they couldn't be in business without everybody sitting around here. These people deserve it. On consumption, basically, we would like to see a big expansion of consumption. Right now, the only thing in San Francisco is lounges that are tied to dispensaries. We would like to see some clarity and some flexibility to encourage cannabis entrepreneurs to come up with different models, not just tied to dispensaries, but different models and different uses of it. We have some trials. Many of you live here or heard about it. Outside Lands just happened, a big music festival. And there was sale and consumption there. So we have trials at big events, and we like that. But we want to see medical patients, for example, to be able to go like we do to cafes, like we do to every other kind of thing. I'd also like to mention that in San Francisco, technically, it's illegal to smoke in an apartment, in a building of 4 or more units. Think about it. But if we had a liquor law like that, who would put up with it? Nobody. And we see it as a civil rights issue because the reality is that most low-income people, including me, live in a building of greater than 4 units, and we could be kicked out of our place at any time. And in fact, this year, it went to the supervisors. One of the supervisors proposed cannabis to be included in the smoking thing. The community came together in a great way, and it was defeated. And one of the positives, I think I heard Dr. Abrams earlier, he wrote an incredible letter, if you've seen it, talking about smoke and saying all smoke is not created equal. And we have to do a better job, I think, of educating the public and our elected officials of what the differences are so that they're not treated the same. So most retail here has to go through conditional use, has to go through the planning commission. And most, I would say, of the applications do not include consumption. And the reason is there's space considerations, but the biggest thing is the HVAC systems are so expensive. The investment is so incredible. And it's not fair and probably not warranted given the actual thing on the smoke. So we want to see these things challenged and have new models that come out for it. I could go on and on about it, but I think the biggest thing I'd like to leave with everybody is to bring consumption to a higher level on the agenda. Most people don't want to deal with it because of all these issues we're talking about. But if you think about it, consumption is one of the keys. We were out here, thank God, so to speak. That is one of the keys of this thing, in our opinion. And we would like to see more time spent by NORML and others to create the conditions in California to have new type of environments that people can benefit from. So in closing, I want to again thank everybody for everything they've done. We're going to continue at Brownie Mary. If you're interested in San Francisco Brownie Mary, please see me afterwards. We're having a Christmas party soon, and you would benefit from that. And again, thank you for everything. Thank you for having me as part of the panel.
Yeah, and I can attest those Brownie Mary parties are definitely worth going to. Yeah, and you know that brings that's been a problem around the state is the anti-tobacco people fighting for these anti-smoking ordinances that impact cannabis oftentimes. We've been able to fight it back in a few cities, San Francisco, West Hollywood. We're working on San Jose. We've just gotten them to delay it a couple of times. But it's passed in a lot of other places. And so I would be remiss if I didn't mention a few other things that CalNORML is working on and is also happening at the local level. Employment rights for cannabis users. We still don't have it in California, even for medical users, and like 23 other states are ahead of us on this. And several states, including New York, which just passed a really good law, are granting employment rights to recreational users. So Assemblyman Quirk is introducing a bill again for us next year. He introduced it last minute last year, and we started working a lot on it and meeting with interest groups and things. And it's going to get a hearing next year. And this basically is directly attacking urine testing, or we call it piss testing, and hair testing, which tests for inactive metabolites of cannabis, have no relation to any kind of on-the-job impairment. And finally, that message is starting to get traction around the world, including the traction that Sha'Carri Richardson just gave it, where we had to disqualify our best sprinter in the Olympics because she was in Oregon and smoked legal pot. So, yeah, really. Join CalNORML and help us fight for that. And that bill was just approved by San Francisco City Council and Oakland City Council, and it's been introduced at the LA City Council. That's something else you can do at the local level, is get your city councils or county supervisors to introduce that. We're also working again on a pain patients bill. They still can kick you off. They still want to drug test you. I just heard a complaint again from Kaiser this week. If you're being prescribed pain medications and want to kick you off of it if you're using cannabis, Yami Bolanos, who helped pass they were able to kick you off organ transplant lists in California until ASA mostly, and Yami passed a bill to change that, herself an organ transplant patient, and she's been working with us on a paying patients bill. We did get one good law passed this year, Ryan's Law, which requires hospitals to allow terminally ill patients to use cannabis, not smoke it, but use it. And there's going to be a lot of implementation around that. We're already hearing that there's been some resistance in Marin County and stuff to it. So you can pass a law, little girl, if you don't like it, but you really have to work on the implementation of it. And I found that out with Prop 215. I thought my job was over in 1996. Okay, so without further ado, I want to get to Amber Center, who is someone who has, we all want equity in cannabis with applications, and there's a lot of obstacles to that. And this is a woman who has really broken through those obstacles, not just with her Maker House, but with her organization, Supernova Women. And I'm excited to hear from Amber to talk about all that.
Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. So thank you, Dale, and thank you, Ellen, for inviting me to speak on this panel today. It's funny when Ellen reached out to me and she asked, it took me a couple of days to respond because I just felt like, I'm like, really? Like, you want me to speak at the anniversary celebration? Okay. So very grateful to be here. Thank you very much for having this celebration, really. This is obviously a really big day, not just for California, but for the country. This legislation here has obviously changed the face of cannabis and cannabis legalization, and really provided a pathway for patients to be able to consume cannabis. So thank you so much for everyone that is here to acknowledge this. So I'm a patient. I'm a veteran of the United States Coast Guard. I use cannabis to help treat lupus that I suffer from. And I'm an advocate in the space, also an operator in Oakland. I do have a cannabis business where we sell products throughout the state, California. I got my start in Georgia NORML, actually, and back in 2005. I started advocating and showing up to protests and things like that at the state capitol. I started growing cannabis in Georgia in 2007. So that was a really interesting time for me. One of my partners ended up getting caught and going to jail. So I decided that I should probably move to a friendlier state. So I moved to California at the end of 2013. And I actually got a job working for Mickey Martin. And started working with Mickey. It's funny, the first night I moved here, I had dinner at Ed Rosenthal's house. John Vergados and Julie Chiarello cooked dinner. And I got to meet Jane and Ed, of course. Mickey took me to dinner there. And I actually stayed with Debbie Goldsberry for the first 6 weeks that I lived here in California to help get me established and set up. So, I definitely feel and echo what everyone says here, and that they're standing on the shoulders of giants, absolutely. But I'm here today to talk about we had these giants advocating for us, but we've also had this other population that we haven't really spoken about that has been completely destroyed around the laws of cannabis, and that is the Black and brown folks. Black and brown folks that aren't here in this room that I want to speak on behalf of. So I learned a lot of advocacy and tactics on how to get things done at the local and state level from Debbie Goldsberry and Mickey Martin. That was some of the most pivotal and really instrumental and influential training that I had. And I took what I learned from them and advocated on behalf of Black and brown folks in cannabis so that we could have representation. So I met Nina Parks in 2015, beginning of 2015. I also met Sion Sunshine Lencho at that same time. And we formed a group called Supernova Women because we saw that the barrier was very high to participate in the legal cannabis market and that our communities were going to be left behind. So we started advocating at the local level at City of Oakland for an equity program. And really, we didn't call it an equity program at the time. We just called it lowering barriers of entry. So we just started asking for how can we make sure that our communities are included? How can we make sure that tax revenues are directed to those communities that have been most harmed by the war on drugs? And we got people in our community to come and show up with us and echo the same things that we were saying. And we learned a lot. I learned a lot from Debbie and Mickey. We would print talking points on half-page sheets, pass them out to everybody. We make sure we have food at all of the city council meetings so people would stay. They would come after work and stay and give testimony. And it worked. And we were able to get the first social equity program established in the country. And then we did the same thing in San Francisco. And then we started working with Senator Stephen Bradford's office at the state and developed SB 1294, which is the Cannabis Social Equity Act of 2018, which now funds all the local social equity programs throughout the state. And now this has turned into not just a national conversation, but an international conversation. You know, I'm constantly having calls with folks over in London, folks over in Spain, that are Canada, that are very interested in making sure that the disadvantaged populations are included in any form of legalization. So thank you to everyone for being here today, for fighting the good fight. It hasn't been easy. It's been decades and decades and decades of blood, sweat, and tears. We still have a long way to go, but we are moving the needle. And I just want to make sure that everyone remembers to keep those other communities that aren't necessarily represented in this room in your thoughts, because this industry was also built on their backs. Thank you.
Thanks, Amber. Oh, and speaking of women, I forgot to mention one sponsor who came in this week, Medicine Women Health Consulting in Santa Barbara. I can't wait to have time to talk to her about what she's doing down there, but she just wanted to send us some money and to support what we're doing. And so it's just been so heartwarming to see all the support we got for this conference and this movement. Okay, so last but not least is Sean Kiernan, who has been so successful with Weed for Warriors, thinking outside the box, has a lot of good ideas he's going to share with us today.
Wow, thank you very much. And I mean, the thing that's shocking to me is it's really a story of different Americas. We live in America, and as a veteran, I've lived in the South, New York, LA, San Francisco. I went to Berkeley, lived in Central and South America, been in Asia for a long time. And what you realize is we operate in these different mini Americas that in many cases don't relate to each other very well. And you could say in one sense that was me with the cannabis community and Prop 64, because when we joined, I came from a patient. In 1989, I joined the U.S. military out of Los Angeles, ended up going to Army Airborne Infantry School and experienced many things, including loss of life in Central and South America on the front lines of what was the drug war. As a young kid, I was a fly on the wall. I saw a lot of interesting things, but didn't all connect to me. And many years later, after I got out of Berkeley and worked on Wall Street, some things came back to me in the sense of some of the events I was involved in, and it really decompartmentalized, not by choice, what I had compartmentalized in my head. And that led me down the road of the pharmaceutical approach. Was an absolute disaster for me. I went into I had Wall Street insurance, so I was like, I need to see you, doc. My wife said, you need to go see someone. And I got in that day, and the next thing I know, I'm on lithium, and I'm on antidepressants, I'm on mood stabilizers, you name it. And that led me to self-medication, and some of the wording from some of these pioneers that I never got to meet was very interesting and true. And that is what we see in the veteran community. Cannabis is the least dangerous substance we can take to medicate our issues. And so from there, in 2013, at 11, I had a suicide attempt. And I was self-medicating, and it was in 2013 that I went and visited the La Jolla VA because I had lost my health insurance because I had moved from New York to Los Angeles. And basically the health insurers said you have a pre-existing condition because you have to reapply, and they denied me insurance. So I went from privileged, Wall Street, with cash to now being a cash payer. And it was when I went to the 2013 to the VA in La Jolla, and they 5150 me. And if anyone knows what that is, it's the doctor goes, how do you like to stay for observation? And I'm like, why the hell do I want to do that? And she goes, because it's better than involuntary observation. I had Pete hot for all 17 drugs they test for, and they wanted to know what was going on. So from that point, I connected it all. The Edward medication, going upstairs, see the vets, it connected all with me finally. And when I got out, I immediately contacted my uncle who worked at the University of Arizona as an economist and said, there's a Dr. Sisley there. Can you put me in touch? And literally that night I got called from Dr. Sue. And that's when I joined the fight with her in Arizona, fighting for cannabis access, the study with PTSD of whole plant cannabis. And I know it was touched before, and I'm a big believer in whole plant cannabis. And I do think there's a deficiency in our system. I don't think you can study whole plant cannabis as in the scientific approach we use in this country. So I thought it was interesting. But from there, I ended up fighting for her study. And the great thing is it led me to meet the Weed for Warriors, Kevin Richardson and my partner, Mark Carrillo now. And 2015, met them at the Denver High Time Cup. And from there, came into the Weed for Warriors. I was the guy with the business degree, so I kind of ended up helping run it. Didn't want anything to do with it because I was doing psychedelics in some mountain in San Diego at this time. And basically ended up working with Sue, getting the funding out of the Colorado State. Funny enough, when we came back in end of November, caught the DEA on my property, planning a GPS divide. I literally walked out nude and confronted 2 DEA agents at like 2 a.m. And that was an interesting story, but not important here. But from there, I went into the Weed for Warriors, and what I noticed is had the beauty of Prop 215. And what it did is it elevated the patient to the nexus. And what that patient was allowed to do was we literally would start these chapters, and growers would show up at our first chapter meeting and say, hey, if I get arrested, will you say I'm growing for you? Here's a pound of weed. And of course, the veterans are like, hell yes. And it was the second time we walked in with 50 vets, and the judge just immediately threw this out that we got known. Just get these guys on your side because they show up with like 50 to 100 of them and say you grew for them. So from there, when Prop 64 came out, I read it in December of 2015. I literally was horrified. I said, this thing's going to be a disaster. I think part of Wall Street experience could see right through what they were doing, creating an oligopoly, taxi cab medallion. It really was going to price. And the two biggest objections I had in paper was printed was local control is going to kill you and the taxes are going to create a huge illicit market. And so we're here today. And so, one of the things I want to talk about is what we're doing. SB 34, we were essential in helping it pass. Ryan, I see some people who were helped. We would walk into conservatives and say, if you don't vote for this, we're going to park 100 vets outside your office and protest you tomorrow. It got passed. And then with Gavin Newsom, I ended up getting a video of him saying right before Governor Brown vetoed it at one of these expensive dinners someone sent us to, I don't know if Brown's going to veto it, but if I run for governor and get elected, I will sign SB 34. Back then it was SB 283 or something. And literally I sent that video the 2 days out of panic because some people called it blackmail. I just said it was me letting him know. We had a veteran ask, and I asked, will you sign SB 34? And he goes, absolutely. And so that video got deposited on his desk a couple days before the veto term, and then SB 34 got signed. What the real important here is, and is Ed here, Ed Rosenthal? I disagree with one thing Ed said, and he said price doesn't matter. Well, if eliminating the illicit market is our goal, and I think that's the only way we succeed in normalizing cannabis, price absolutely matters because all we're doing is legalizing cannabis for the rich, and the 80% of the market that's currently illicit is now suffering. So what we're coming to the table is with CCRI, Cannabis, I don't even remember what, California Cannabis Reform Initiative, and we took the recall election off, I think for obvious reasons, to the not happiness of some, but hopefully we can figure that one out. Question is, how do we get this funded? Because a lot of the billionaires boy club that funded this isn't around because to them they got it legalized. And then two, industry is incentivized not to go after their oligopoly. And then when we ran the initial kind of went public in the spring, we had a bunch of people come out and say, I love your idea. I just want to make sure I'm the only dispensary in my box. So I want to preserve that local control a little bit. And so we think we've had a solution. We're about to launch a bunch of beta tests. If anyone wants to participate, I'm going to ask Ryan Miller to stand up. We bought in Radical Exchange. Radical Exchange is actually founded by Weil, the Microsoft economist, and Vitalik Buterin, the founder of Ethereum, is on the board. So needless to say, where I think we are is we have found a pathway to get an initiative on the ballot and a pathway to win, to truly normalize cannabis by going after the black market. Because I think if that's your goal, eliminate the black market, everything else is solved. We have a beta I'd like Ryan to mention because it involves the blockchain. So everyone goes, oh, it's crypto. It's not.
So the blockchain is not we look at technology called program coding that I definitely implore you to look up Radical Exchange for a lot of things they're doing for democracy going forward and different ways of building consensus and building and how humans organize themselves. So we're looking at this as a technology because clearly 64 needs to change. There's a lot of different incentives. So it's really, really difficult. We all need to change it. So we're proposing is a process where, it's without getting into too much mechanical details. We're going to really go unless everyone's preference to try to build a consensus on a very, very challenging issue, which is what this whole concept is for.
And importantly, we can pay for it. And that's in America, all that matters. But one last thing I want to say before I close is one thing we need to remember about SB 34. We have 2 million veterans in the state. I don't think there's anyone seeing more patients per month than we are. And we're going to see 800 to 1,000 this month with our 12 vets from San Diego up north of Sacramento. It's not even a drop in the bucket. There's 2 million veterans. SB 34 is not an answer. What it is great, it's a Band-Aid, and it's great for raising awareness of the continual issues that we don't have legalized cannabis for the majority.
Well, that's our last word. We still have work to do. So I want to thank this panel for coming and, compressing what really should have been a day-long conference on each of these topics into, 7 minutes each. And just, to give us a taste of where we really need to go from here. So where I think I want to go from here is I'm ready for my 420 break. And so do one more perusal around the sponsor tables. Look at those silent auction items because it's going to close any minute now. And maybe enjoy the lawn for a minute. And then it takes about a half an hour to get down to the party venue. So, could sort of gather and do some ride sharing if you want. And I guess we'll see you at the party.